This is Operation Save the UFC. Now, I'm going to have you guys comment down below if you agree with any of this. If you completely disagree, please tell me, because I've kind of been thinking this for a little while now, and I want to see what you all think about this. And if I'm completely wrong, and if all of the comments are just disagreeing, hate comments, saying you know nothing about what you're talking about here, you have no right to speak on this situation, the UFC are doing their best, then I'll make a separate video and apologise. I'll say, okay, look, you were right, I was wrong, whatever. Let me tell you this though, let me speak my mind about this now. 2021, I thought, was a pretty good year for the UFC. Now I thought, we had McGregor fight, first of all. McGregor fight twice. He fought in January against Poirier, then July against Poirier, so that's obviously a very good year for the UFC's pay-per-views right there, right? 2022 rolls around. Now this year, I've been a little look at the events, right? So this is 2022. Last year we had some good fights. We had Usman Covington, that was a great fight. What else? What other like massive events did we have? We have Adesanya Pereira. We had O'Malley versus Yan, Makhachev versus Oliveira. Great fights, loads of great fights. But I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you this now, and this is where the UFC is dying right now. When I say dying, take that with a pinch of salt. To hold the term that I've just said, dying, very, very loosely. I'm not meaning they're dying and they're not going to die out anytime soon. The sport is being killed by Dagestanis, first of all. By Merab Develashvili. Now, you can't, I know, I can already hear the comments, oh, you just don't like grapplers, if you were a real fan, you would appreciate good grappling. I love watching grapplers fight. Beneil Dariush, his scrambles are amazing, his takedown defense is incredible, right? I love when wrestlers are active. I didn't mind watching Khabib because it was so dominant, it was so much pressure, it was just so unbearable, and just after a certain amount of time, you're like, okay, this is a bit boring now, but it's still incredible to watch. There's no personalities left in the sport. The sport is really dying. Sean O'Malley, he's a star. People know who he is just by his look, by his like persona, by his goofy Instagrams, by his highlight reel knockouts, on top of him being such like a goofy, non-intimidating looking guy. But he doesn't have the talk, in my opinion. He doesn't have that trash talk. Like when he was in the press conference with Peter Yan said, look, you got a whore on the side of the road. He went, yeah, that was good, bud. That was good. And even on the Red Hawk recap, I'm on Sean O'Malley's coach's Patreon, Tim Welch's Patreon. He said, yeah, Sean froze up there. Sean froze up. He was saying that. And I'm like, Peter Yan trains in Thailand. Peter Yan could have literally went to him, you look like a whore on the side of the road, and O'Malley could have been like, yeah, you'd know a lot about them training out in Thailand. You'd know a lot about whores on the side of the road training out in Thailand, bud. You could have said something like, so just fired back a little bit of spite. But I think he's more of like that goofy troll, like he just winds people up by being so goofy and funny, and which is his shtick. And he has great performances. Now, come on, guys. You cannot say the O'Malley fight was a robbery. Like, come off it. Rewatch the fight. You can give O'Malley the win. Rewatch the Paddy Pimblett fight. It's more evident that he lost. Like, in the moment, I was like, give it either way, maybe. Then I rewatched it. Pimblett lost. That was like the biggest robbery of the year. Oh my goodness. But like, Paddy Pimblett, I made a video on this about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. He's a star with no more hype. Like, I'm not hyped because I know he can't take over. O'Malley, I kind of know if he becomes the bantamweight champion, that'll be like kind of like a little takeover, and it'll be cool, and I think he'd skyrocket in popularity if he starts talking a bit more, if he comes out with like a one-liner and puts on a spectacular performance. Like, if he knocks out Henry Cejudo for the belt, Sean O'Malley has literally went from Julian Paiva to Peter Yan, and then he got the belt. Like everything Sean O'Malley was slagged off for. Weak ankles, he's never going to be a star. Then he goes and does that. That'd be incredible. That would be an arc. That would boost the UFC. Because UFC is above all these other promotions, yes, but still, they're dying. Like, the UFC is dying out. the Adesanya is not a pay-per-view draw. Shut up if you think he is. He's not. I'll make a whole separate video on Adesanya's personality if you want, because I've literally broken that thing down so many times and like making notes and stuff for a video I want to do. But I want to maybe get a bit more traction on the channel, then unleash a fucking demolition job on Israel Adesanya. But I mean, whatever. You know what? Okay, fair enough. Operation Save the UFC. Here we go. Number 1. What the fuck are these cards? The Fight Night cards are appalling. Last year we had so many terrible Fight Night cards with women main events. Like, fair enough putting Mackenzie Dern in a women's main event because people find her attractive, or like Miesha Tate or someone like that. But like, there was one event last year, like Watterson versus Hachoi or something like that. It was like, I get you have to get your fighters fights, but like, the matchmakers could maybe just be like, okay, if you have Watterson versus Hachoi as the co-main event, then maybe kind of relatively unknown guys but promise fireworks. People will tune in because they know the co-main event slightly. Then they'll stick around for the main event, and it'll be fireworks, and you'll be like, wow, you've now got a fan in me. And you know, ranked fighters, okay, fair enough. Like, let's say like Gaslam, right? This weekend, ranked like 8 or something. You can understand that because they're in the top 15 in the world. I get that. And Gaslam had that razor close fight with Israel Adesanya and all of that type of stuff. You know, Gaslam's been on a bit of a slide, so it doesn't make it as exciting, but he's against an up-and-comer, which that's not the issue. Point number 2, they're overstacking the massive cards. Like, for example, UFC 282, was it? 281? The one in Abu Dhabi? No, UFC 280, was it? Oliveira versus Makhachev. That card was fucking amazing from fights top to bottom, but they're overstacked. Like, there's too many great fights, right? And I know that's like, whenever I'm sat there the week before, I'm like, oh my god, this card is fucking amazing. I'm gonna watch it start to finish. Can't wait. I'm so excited. In that moment, I'm happy. But then a month later, and there's like 2 good fights, but the rest of the card is pretty weak for a pay-per-view that you're paying $80 for. It's like, could you not have had a few of the fights from last month's card on this card? And I get fighters have lives and they've got when they want to fight, but like and I know the UFC have to offer fighters fights, and like, and just somehow that's just how it works out. Some cards are just overstacked. It's a bit bad though. Like, some of the pay-per-views we've had this year have been appalling. Like Nunes versus Pena. First of all, that was the shittest season of The Ultimate Fighter I've ever watched. Juliana Pena has no idea how to fight. She can't even throw a punch. Amanda Nunes, she kind of freaks me out a little bit. Like, fair play to her, the women's GOAT, but I'd like someone a bit more feminine as the women's GOAT. Like Joanna and Jacek, she looks scary, like Slender Man or something. I love Joanna. She's the queen of MMA. But she's, you know, a bit scary looking. Ronda Rousey, perfect. She looks feminine enough. She kind of got that kind of boss girl about her. She was a star. And Zhang Wei Li, she looks like a girl, Asian girl, but she's lost and now she's back. And she puts on great fights, right? Zhang Wei Li, amazing. Mackenzie Dern, feminine. She's good. She looks like a girl and she can perform all right. Amanda Lemos, perfect example as well, right? People like Jessica Andrade. Who else? I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just describing women's looks now. I would like someone a bit more feminine, and I think that could really make them a proper star in the women's space. Because I feel like when you have a women champion that is a killer and has broken records, but looks quite like a man, it's a bit like, okay, that doesn't really count. Spread out the fights. Please spread out the fights, UFC. Like, I want to get everybody's takes on this. This is Operation Save the UFC in 2023. I'm excited. Nathaniel Wood, I think, is going to really break through. He's just announced his fight in March. I love Nathaniel Wood. I'm going to make a separate video on that as well. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, though, on this. The UFC needs to buck up their ideas. Like, come on. No more. How about this? I know you need to offer your fighters fights, right? And completely ignore me on that part before I say this. Skip a week. Don't just put a shitty fight night in on the weekend for the sake of it. Skip a week. Have 12 fights on a fight night card, maybe. 15, maybe, like, but have like a solid like main card. Not a pay-per-view level main card, but just like a good one, like good solid fights. But then again, we do get the odd really good fight night, even if it's like fucking Cruz versus Chito Vera. Dominic Cruz versus Chito Vera. That card didn't look great, but it was a great card. A lot of finishes and a great main event with a crowd. Get rid of the Apex. The reason, this is my third and final point, the reason the fight nights haven't been as good in 2022 was because the UFC have the Apex. And yes, it's so convenient. And yes, if you need to give people fights, you put them in the Apex. Vera versus Cruz. Great main event. The card wasn't stacked back then, guys. But it was a great night of fights because the matchmakers knew it was in front of a crowd. They had to sell out an arena and they had to, have a good card to sell out the arena and also to keep fans in the arena. So it didn't just, die out. Trust me, if any of these typical fight night cards had a crowd, people would be walking out and then just coming back for the main event. They're not being captivated enough. The fights aren't being... You get the odd really good fight, but then you're not being captivated. We're trying to build stars next year, and these fight night cards are turning people's eyes away from the UFC. Oh, that's the standard of event? A pay-per-view, yeah, it's worth $80, but it can't be much better than that. That's what people think. Comment your thoughts, whatever you think. Thank you.